And congratulations, by the way, on your
Thank you.
semester. Did you have fun?
Yes, it was very good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And your recording, fantastic. Okay.
Great. All right. Okay, can you see this?
I can see it, yes.
Okay. All right, it's like full screen?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great.
It looks
Okay. So I'm Andrew Shiebler, and this is my Crane Teacher Performance Assessment presentation. So a little bit about what we're going to be going into here. So first, I'll talk about the New York State teaching standards. There are 7 of them, but I'll be talking about 3 of them in particular. Standard number 2, which is knowledge of content and instructional planning. I'll talk about standard 4, which is learning environment, and then standard 6, which is professional responsibilities and collaboration. And then when I'm done with that, I'll be talking about the 4 pillars that the Crane School of Music has in their music education program, which are critical thinker, flexible musician, principal practitioner, and innovative leader. And then after that, I'll just be talking a bit about how I'm going to be moving forward as an educator after student teaching is over. So again, my name is Andrew Shiebler. I'm a music education major at the Crane School of Music. I have a concentration in trumpet. I'm from Long Island, New York, and over the past semester, I've had the pleasure of student teaching at 2 different schools and districts. My first 7 weeks were on the elementary level at Tangier Smith Elementary School, which is in the William Floyd School District, with Mr. Ryan Felcher was my cooperating teacher. In that placement, I was teaching K through 5 general music. I was teaching 4th grade chorus, and I was also doing some secondary after school programs, which I'll be talking about later in the presentation. And then my second placement, which I'm just finishing up in the next week, is my high school placement at Connecticut High School in the Connecticut School District with Miss Stacy Stolberger. And in that, we're teaching instrument lessons for band, jazz lab band, and the symphonic band. So first up is the New York State teaching standards. So first I'll be talking about the second standard, which is knowledge of content and instructional planning. So this standard is all about teachers knowing the content that they're responsible for teaching and planning instruction so that it ensures growth and achievement for all students involved. So my artifact here, I was going to talk about NYSSMA lessons. So the NYSSMA Solo Festival was occurring during my high school placement. This is an artifact for my Connecticut High School placement. Um, so about 5 to 10 students in my symphonic band were going to this festival. There was a just district-wide festival that was held at the high school. So I gave the opportunity for students that were preparing pieces to come in for individual lessons during the school day. One student in particular, which I have recordings of here, was a trumpet student, and we were working on the Peters Sonata. So to prepare myself for this and apply myself with the second standard of knowledge of content and instructional planning, I individually practiced this piece on my own during prep periods when I had the time, when lessons were planned for the day and my teacher didn't need any help with anything. I took some time to look at the piece, learn it myself so I could help teach the student to the best of my ability. We used iPhone voice memos as an instructional tool, which I'll be playing in a bit, and I'll talk about that. And I also worked with other students as well during this time on their pieces. I had another trumpet student, I had a baritone saxophone student, I had 2 clarinet students who were thinking about doing NYSSMA. They ended up just taking the pieces to audition for the wind ensemble at the high school, but still helping with them was really great for them. So I was working with an array of different students and instruments. So over here are some recordings that we took with this student. This is iPhone voice memos is something I learned to use during my own trumpet studies from my professors, just as a tool of isolating your sound and hearing the mistakes, hearing what you sound like in a bottle, because when you're just playing by yourself without recording, it just sounds a lot different than to listen back to it. So I was using that with him, and I'll just play this for a bit. 1, 2, 3. So we would record these to reflect on them right after and just see where we should go from there, what we should work on. And I also was playing with him in those to just give him that little more boost. And then some recordings he would just play on his own. So it was just differentiating instruction in that way. And here's another recording. 1, 2, 3. Good. Ready? And in particular, in this lesson and with this piece, we were talking about double tonguing because that's very prevalent in that piece. So we're working a lot on that and isolating that sound through the voice memos. So next slide, I'll just be talking a little bit about some of the elements and indicators that I was utilizing with this artifact. So element 2.1 is teachers demonstrate knowledge of the content they teach, including relationships among central concepts, tools of inquiry, structures, and current developments within their disciplines. And then the indicators here are teachers incorporate key concepts during instruction through the use of multiple representations and explanations. And then D, teachers design learning experiences that foster student understanding of key disciplinary themes. So I was incorporating the key concepts like double tonguing, and we were using voice memos to look at that or hear that back, and demonstrating knowledge of the content I teach. I was just doing that through preparing outside of class, this piece in particular. And then element 2.6, teachers evaluate and utilize curricular materials and other appropriate resources to promote student success in meeting learning goals. A, teachers organize physical space to reflect an awareness of learner needs and curricular goals. So for that one in particular, I'll just show you back here. This is our lesson room. That's a little room off of the band room that we'll take students in when we're teaching individual group lessons during the day. And so we kind of set it up in this circle. So it's not just like us teaching at the students, but we're actually like involved with them, sitting with them. And so it's like a collaborative environment. And then for just the one-on-one lessons with this student, we'd probably just be in these chairs back here, sitting right next to each other and working together. So it's more of like a collaborative thing rather than just teaching. B, in teachers incorporate a knowledge and understanding of technology in their lessons to enhance student learning, which of course is the iPhone recording. And then C, teachers organize and effectively use time to achieve learning goals. So I was using time during the day to invite these students in if they wanted to find the time to work on them one-on-one with me. So, and just a couple more connections. So I was also thought to connect these lessons to standards from this over here is the culturally responsive sustaining education framework, which the Crane School of Music highlights as important for our teachers to know. So there are 4 standards, 4 elements that are at work in the cultural responsive sustaining framework. I use 2 here that I applied: welcoming and affirming environment. So inviting students in to work outside of their time and outside of my time to help them out with these pieces, and also just the environment of the arrangement of where we're sitting in the lesson room. Just is all at play there to make a respectful and safe environment for students. And high expectations and rigorous instructions. I was always on top of these students. This is a solo competition and we're working towards this. So always keeping high expectations in that kind of environment. And it also resulted, I did go to the festival with them and was helping them out there. And that particular trumpet student I was working with actually got a 99 on that piece. So that was a really cool moment. And he was very grateful for my help. So that was great. And then some of the pillars for the Crane School of Music that were at play here were critical thinker, where I was challenging the students to self-assess their practices. Flexible musician, I was working with different instruments that I was and practicing outside of class, and also innovative leader, where I'm applying new strategies of teaching into the lesson with the voice memos and one-on-one instruction. So next, I'm going to be talking about the fourth teaching standard, which is learning environment. Um, this artifact is from my elementary placement with Mr. Felcher. So this is a document I made and I updated during and throughout my elementary placement. And it's a compiled list of strategies I learned and refined from my teacher. So this teacher in particular had me jump in right away with teaching, which was scary. Um, but it was beneficial to see what works and what doesn't with students, especially at this age. And at first I wasn't able to fully engage them to the point that I would want to. So watching my teacher teach and working with him to compile this list of strategies was really helpful to keep management in my classroom during my own teaching when I had opportunities to teach on my own. This teacher in particular, Mr. Felcher, is just has been cultivating this list of strategies for years and years, all throughout his career, and uh, it was really cool to watch and replicate on my own. So I made this list. Um, these strategies promote routine and set expectations and standards in the classroom. So routine is very good for students at this age, so they know what to expect when they enter the classroom, um, and they know what the teacher expects of them. As far as respecting others, um, being on their best behavior, and working hard. Um, one of the examples is engaging students with jobs and opportunities to be rewarded. Jobs are just like a little thing that Mr. Felcher came up with, like officer jobs I put over here, which is like, let's have a silent officer, which you could choose anyone in the class that's been working hard and being on their best behavior. You'll choose them to go to the front of the class and keep an eye on them, um, and let the teacher know if anyone's talking or misbehaving. So everyone's on the same page. Everyone knows what to expect. And working hard in this class is rewarded. We sometimes had like lollipops for hard workers. We did like a ticket system with the older students if they were keeping on task and singing to the best of their ability. So all kinds of stuff, just reward systems that keep students engaged in learning. And then these management strategies also promote a softer and quieter environment for students to feel safe and included. I say this especially for ELL students, where some of them in this district, there's a lot of ELL students, and some students just show up every day. They're just new to the school and they don't know any English. So we try to keep a quiet, safe environment where they can feel a little more welcome and feel safe to interact with the other students. Also, my teacher promotes this with the way he sets up the classroom. There was he puts in lamps to have like soft lighting, and he just arranges the room in a way that it promotes safe and respectful learning. So just a couple elements and indicators. Element 4.1, teachers create a mutually respectful, safe, and supportive learning environment that is inclusive of every student. Teachers are caring and respectful in their interactions with students. I find this to be very important, always to be respectful of students and at any age, and they will respect you back if you are treating them that way. Element 4.2, teachers create an intellectually challenging and stimulating learning environment. Teachers encourage students to set high standards and expectations for their own performance, which is promoted by the reward systems that we put into place. And D, students are actively engaged in learning, as we said, with the some of the strategies we used to keep the students always engaged. And element 4.3, teachers manage the learning environment for the effective operation of the classroom. Teachers establish, communicate, and maintain clear standards and expectations for student behavior. So it's always being reiterated daily Are we in our ready positions? Are we learning? Um, is this what we should be doing right now? And the class knows. Mr. Felcher, at the very first day of the year, sets this precedent and routine, and he sticks to it the whole year. So they always know what to expect. Um, the teachers develop, implement, and adapt routines and procedures to manage activities and transitions, everything that I was just talking about. And D, students exhibit respectful classroom interactions. So again, always respect in the classroom. Behavior is always has to be on its highest level to be involved with the fun stuff in the lesson. And then a couple more connections. Again, welcoming and affirming environment. Always safe, respectful environment in the classroom with these management strategies, and also high expectations and rigorous instruction. So we can be with respectful and nice to the students, but at the same time keep very high expectations for their behavior and for their work ethic to keep going. And this applies to all grade levels, K through 5. They they can all display respectfulness and high work ethic in the classroom. And also pillars, um, innovative leader. This is about applying new strategies into the classroom, so I thought that applied here. And also principal practitioner, which talks about um, implementing equity and equality into the classroom, into reactions or interactions between the teacher and the students. And then going on, one more teaching standard. This is teaching standard number 6, which is professional responsibilities and collaboration. So this artifact here is about the Center for Interim Instruction. This is one of the secondary after school um, programs that I was involved with my elementary student teacher or cooperating teacher. So after the elementary day, we would go over to the high school, which is in the same parking lot. So we would just drive over there and we would go to this Center for Interim Instruction, which is a program designed to aid suspended students across William Floyd schools. So it's really middle school and high school students. They come to the high school after school hours, so it's 3:15 to 5:15 p.m. and they keep up on their studies during their suspended time. So the students have all sorts of varying times that they're going to be staying in there. Um, but the point of this program is to keep them learning and encourage them to get out of the program. It's not a program that they should be staying in. The point of it is to get them back into the high school and keep them moving towards their high school diploma. So my role in this program would be teaching basic note reading to long-term students. When I say long-term students, those are students that are going to be staying in that program for a couple months, maybe the whole school year. It depends. Um, so I'll be teaching basic note learning to them. That's what I was doing during this program. So here's like an example worksheet that we worked on. So I would, this was a different way of looking at it for me. I was told during when I was learning notes was every good boy does fine and face to figure out the notes, like on the scale here. But we used a different method that was new to me, but made sense. So we would draw the treble clef, tell them that it was the G clef, show them how it shows where G is on the staff with this circle, and then we would use the alphabet to count up and down lines and spaces to find the other notes. So we would teach this to students who are enrolled in any sort of music class in the high school, and so they need to keep on their up on their work. So if they're in orchestra, chorus, general music, band, whatever, we're going to find ourselves working with them. So this is the basic first page. We would get into more pages, but yeah. Along with this role of teaching these students, I was also aiding with Mr. Felcher's executive data role. So there's a principal in this school that he works very closely with, and his position is to be like the data keeper. He's very good with spreadsheets and all that sort of digital stuff. So some of the stuffs he would be doing would be locating students within the program, what classroom they're in, which students they can work with, which students they are not allowed to be with, if there's fights or anything. If students are absent, find where they are, hand out bus passes at the end of the day, all that sort of stuff. So I was very hands on with him. Um, I was always watching, and he was very helpful with telling me about how all this works and just keeping me in the loop to see what was going on. So that was very cool to see and help out with. Um, Another thing I would do in the classes was mediate student to student relationships, to keep students always on task, collaborating with other teachers in the program. So the teachers are mostly high school and middle school teachers that stay after school. Um, so there'll be like a couple social studies teachers, a couple math teachers, and they help students, kind of like tutoring, like one-on-one with the students, on the work packets that they're provided during this time. So we'd have to collaborate, teacher to teachers all throughout the program to decide what does this particular student need to be learning right now, what does this particular student need to be working on, and how can we help them. Um, and students with work across other disciplines, sometimes I was left in that role to help with math or social studies or whatever they needed. Um, but mostly, keeping them encouraged. Mr. Felcher was always stressing this, that if they're encouraged and they do the work, then they can get out of the program and go back to the high school and keep working to get their diploma. So he would always talk about all the cool programs that the high school has, keeping them encouraged to, hey, maybe I shouldn't be suspended. Maybe I should actually be working so I can be, successful one day. So we'd always be talking about that. So those are a bunch of things I was doing in this program. That was really cool. Um, so here are some elements and indicators of what was going on here. There's a lot here, but I'll go through it. 6.1, teachers uphold professional standards of practice and policy as related to students' rights and teachers' responsibilities. B, teachers are proactive and advocate to meet the needs of the students. It's always about the students here, meeting their needs, and getting them to finish their work so they can move on through the program. Element 6.2, teachers engage and collaborate with colleagues and the community to develop and sustain a common culture that supports high expectations for student learning. B, teachers participate actively as part of an instructional team. So it's really a team effort, for all these students, with the teachers. And C, teachers share information and best practices with colleagues to improve practice. So this relates to, let's say a particular student works well in a one-on-one environment or works well with multiple teachers. So that's kind of information we would share with each other and work together to work that out for every student. Element 6.3, teachers communicate and collaborate with families, guardians, and caregivers to enhance student development and success. C, teachers suggest strategies and ways in which families can participate in and contribute to their students' education. So where there were some, instances where students weren't showing up or students just weren't working well in the program. So we would have to call the parents, and we would always think first about the success of the student. So we would offer other ideas such as, at home learning, which we would send out a teacher to their home to help them out there, or other programs such as the, alternative school, Floyd Academy, which I'll be talking about later, that I was also, involved with. So just always, suggesting strategies to the parents and working out with them. And element 6.4, teachers manage and perform non-instructional duties in accordance with school district guidelines or other applicable expectations. Teachers manage time and attendance in accordance with established guidelines. So the attendance was a big thing that we would have. There's a big spreadsheet in which all the teachers would have to, put the attendance on, and also at the end of the day, depending on the attendance, we would have to print out bus sheets and hand them out to the students, and so they could get on the bus. So all sorts of things that were going on in this program to make it successful for the students. Culturally responsive, sustaining education framework. Sorry. Um, Things involved here were the welcoming and affirming environment. So again, a safe, respectful environment between the teacher and the student, to keep the students working and engaged, and also high expectations. Um, always maintaining that to keep students working again. And pillars, critical thinker. So this for me, what related to me because I was thinking of note learning in a different way um, for the students uh, and and changing it for whatever the individual student worked better with. And also, principal practitioner, applying all knowledge of music and music education is an important part of that. So applying that into these lessons with students was a big part of it. So the four pillars, we're going to be talking about this now. So the first one, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what they mean to me. So critical thinker is means to challenge yourself and students to assess their practices, and it means to connect learning and teaching across disciplines. Flexible musician means to practice and perform music in different ways, and it means to be open to all musical practices, instruments, and genres. Principal practitioner means to effectively apply all knowledge of music and music education, and it means to incorporate equity and equality into the classroom. And finally, innovative leader means to create new and engaging ways for students to learn, and it also means to apply new strategies and genres into the classroom. So I'll be talking about an artifact for each of these. So first up is critical thinker. So for this, this was with the jazz lab band at the high school placement. So jazz lab band takes place during the day, seventh period, and it's a class where students are coming in to learn more about jazz and work with easier pieces. And then one day, if they stick with the program, they will audition for the higher jazz ensemble. So we were working on concert pieces for the most part, preparing for the concert, which is in a couple weeks. Um, but I thought of a project that they could do, which was a jazz transcription project. If you don't know what transcription is, it is listening to music and writing it down just by ear. Um, so this was a transcription project of Freddie Freeloader, which is a Miles Davis piece that I fully put together for this jazz lab band. And how I did this, I utilized MuseScore, which is an online digital audio workspace, to put the project together. And I transposed for each of the instruments and spelled out the chord changes for everyone to create a good groundwork for them to work with. Because this was a completely new activity for these students that required them to think and listen critically. And I also allowed them to collaborate with their classmates to work on this. So I would be modeling um, the head of the chart, and they would be writing it out. So it was a 4-day process. The first day was me modeling it on my trumpet with the rhythm section in the band, and then the students were writing it. So they started out writing it, and then the second day we finished writing it and started playing it. We had students hand in their worksheets for us to check the work on and hand it back to them the next day. So the next day we would play the head and have sections solo. So like all the trumpets would solo over it at once, all the saxes would solo over it at once, all the trombones, and then the rhythm section, just to get their feet wet with the chord changes. And then the last day, which was Friday, was our improv day where everyone in the class improved over this piece on their own or with a partner. So it was really cool to see that process and see them work on something completely new, and it really worked out. So as far as writing it, they were provided with the first two measures, and the rest was determined orally by using their ears. And they were always assessing and reassessing their work to make it spot on. So I would model throughout the class period multiple times so they can use their instruments to see, is this the right note I wrote? Is this the right rhythm that I wrote? So always rechecking. And then again, I modeled with trumpet and the rhythm section, as well as using the original recording of the piece to provide them with ample context. So I'll just play a little bit of this. So that's about half of the head. It repeats and goes to the second ending the second time. So I use that to formulate this. This is a screenshot of MuseScore. the digital workspace. And you'll see here, this is the score. It's a little small, but these are the two measures that were provided for the students, which is the beginning of the song, and then the rests are rests. And when it would be printed out, you'll see there's no rests here. It's just blank spaces for them to write. So this is one of the trumpet students. This is their completed work. As you can see, they wrote it all out here, correct rhythms, correct notes, and everything. So this the eventual end goal of the worksheet. So that's where they got to. And then I'll play just a little bit of this video. This is that Friday where they all improved. So here's some of the head, and I'll. So you can see I'm here. I'm also playing with them just to so they can listen as well and fix it if it's not quite correct. And then I'll just play a little bit of this solo. Play tuba player soloing a little bit. And I would make these other kids start soloing. And that's a particular point or instance where that was a partner group. So both of them were soloing. So I'd give one of them 4 measures to solo, the other one 4 measures, and then they would solo together for 4 measures. So that's a little bit of that. That was the end point of the project. And so some more connections here. Welcoming and affirming environment. Always safe and respectful interactions between students, and also collaborating with each other was a big part of this. So that's part of that environment. And also high expectations and rigorous instructions. So I would just model it, but I would try not to write too much with them. I would try to let them really do it on their own or with a partner, so they can really learn to use their ears and work without the teacher giving them everything. And then I'm going to relate it to some of the New York State teaching standards. So number 2, knowledge of content and instructional planning. So here I was demonstrating knowledge of the jazz standard and the process of transcription with modeling. 3, instructional practice. I was communicating clearly with my modeling and setting high expectations for students. And then learning environment. I was always respectful and with the students, and I was creating a collaborative environment while again maintaining high expectations. So next we have flexible musician. So here, this standard, I used the artifact of my 4th and 5th grade daily warm-up. So this was obviously during my elementary placement, and working with Mr. Felcher, we created this warm-up for the students that they would complete every day. So this promoted a routine where they enter the classroom and they know that this is the first thing we're doing. This is the warm-up. And so it creates a challenging environment for students to engage with multiple musical facets. So throughout this warm up, they would be using different syllables. They would be doing scales. I would be reminding them of keeping proper technique, drop the jaw, check your cheeks and lips, all that kind of stuff. And also hand signs. So during the scales, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, they would use hand signs as well. As far as how this relates to being a flexible musician, piano is not my main instrument, but with my knowledge from Crane School of Music and also my time practicing this during prep, I was able to perfect this warm up and be able to engage with the students while performing it to create a really effective warm up for them. So I'll just play a little bit of it here. Some of it, and then here's some scales again. So yeah, that's pretty much that. And
And
then here's some more conditions.
can you hear me, Andrew?
Yes,
Oh, sorry to interrupt. Was that chorus or general music? Sorry.
that's fourth grade general music.
That was fourth grade general music. Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yep. So that no, that's okay. So that warm up always occurs during fourth and fifth grade general music classes. That particular video was of a fourth grade class, but we also do that warm up for the fourth grade chorus as well. Um, so again, high expectations and rigorous instruction. I was always shouting out, how they can fix their technique, what they should be thinking about while they're singing, and also inclusive curriculum and assessment. So this is talking about how the whole class is assessed inclusively through this activity. I'm always keeping an eye on the students that are singing and keeping them on task. And they're all contributing to this same exercises. They're all working together to sing well. So that's inclusivity of the assessment. And some standards. Number two, knowledge of content and instructional planning. So I was demonstrating piano and vocal knowledge through the performance of the exercises. Number three, instructional practices. I was always communicating clearly with students throughout the exercises so they knew the standards of the work. And number five, assessment for student learning. So I was constantly evaluating assessment of the class, and then I would differentiate instructions that are being given out during the warm up to improve their practice. So now we'll go into principal practitioner. This is another artifact from the elementary placement. So this is a lesson for grades 3 through 5. Um, that was around the time of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So we have these two songs here, "We Shall Overcome" and "He Had a Dream," that we learned with the students. So these songs incorporated lessons on equity, equality, which are features of the principal practitioner, and civil rights history alongside music. So this was very helpful for students because it connected across social studies and English disciplines. So students were learning about Martin Luther King Jr. in their classes and also in their music class. So we're connecting in that way. Um, Obviously about social studies through the history of Martin Luther King, but English through learning about some of the words in here, such as civil rights leader, Dr. King, why is he a doctor, all that sort of stuff. Um, I used the "Where Did I Stop" game on piano to land on vocabulary words. So this is a game we would play where I would play the melody of it on the piano, and they would have the words on the board, so they would read through it and sing it in their head, and I would stop on a certain word, and they would have to raise their hands and uh, see if they were listening correctly, and they landed on the right word in their head. So they would call out what word uh, was stopped on. And then we also used a ticket system to encourage deep listening. So the ticket system was happening throughout the class. If they got an answer correct, then that student would get a ticket. And then by the end of class, we would call out tickets and they would get rewarded. So that was just to keep students on task even more so. Um, so with the framework here, this was a welcoming and affirming environment. Again, always in this elementary classroom, it's safe and respectful interactions between the teacher and the student. High expectations. So by the end of this project with these songs, we got rid of the words on the board, and I would play the piano, and we would have the whole class sing it from memory. So that was the end goal, and we got to that with all the classes. So that was always maintaining high expectations throughout the project, and also inclusive curriculum and assessment. This is talking about this whole project is talking about empowering learners to be agents of positive change um, through the lessons of Dr. Martin Luther King, and also just exploring perspectives on equity through music. And then some of the standards. Um, the second standard, knowledge of content and instructional planning, again, demonstrating piano and vocal knowledge with the songs. Number four, learning environment, respectful environment, safe, inclusive for all students learning this. And then number five, assessment for student learning. So this was done during the "Where Did I Stop" game that I was just talking about. that assesses which students are closely listening, and also if uh, we do a question, we land on a certain word, and none of the class is getting it, then we differentiate. I would differentiate instruction and assess where to go from there. Um, Make it easier, go in a different route than this game. So that would always be happening during this project. And then here's the last pillar, which is innovative leader. So this is another um, out of school, after school program I was involved with during my elementary school placement, um, which was at the Floyd Academy program, which is part of the William Floyd District, again at the high school. This is a program for alternative high school students with varying situations. So um, if high school, that regular environment isn't working for them, they'll go here. If they can only make the hours that are in this program, then they'll go here. All sorts of reasons for students to be here. So this was a piano class that we taught. This was for a fine arts credit to graduate from this program. Um, this was one of, if not the only program or class at this time in this program that offered this credit. So students really needed this to graduate. So we were always pushing students to join and be engaged in the class so they can graduate. So it's always about the students. This is a student centered and student led environment, working independently at independent paces. So this was all about being an innovative leader, um, taking kind of a back seat and allowing students to work on their own with this method book over here that we handed out for all the students so they would work at their own paces through it. And I, as the teacher, would kind of float around the class and monitor assessment, participation, and needs of each individual. So we'd always be setting goals for each individual, keeping track of their needs, how they're participating, how they're progressing through the book. So helping all the students at once, but also giving them time to work on their own and see what works for them. Students mainly use the method book, but I was able to adapt to student choices of music and ways of learning.
Right.
This is an example up here. One of the students was interested in the music of Kanye West. Um, so, alongside his learning through the method book, we decided to allow him some time to look at this too, to keep him engaged in piano, because sometimes he would just sit there and not really want to do anything. So, we were thinking of ways to help him out and keep him encouraged and engaged to keep going. So, this was like a little different way to look at piano. This is just like a YouTube tutorial. So this kind of worked for this student, having like a visual aid to see where the keys are on the piano, what's going on in the music, uh, but balancing that as well with the written notation in this method book. Um, and always in this class, it's about motivation, encouragement, and deals. Mr. Felcher would talk about deals, leveling with the students. These are high school students, so they're going to be treated or interacted with differently than elementary school students. So he was always talking about how um, you need to go to their level and be like, you need this class to graduate, um, and here are ways we can do this. And yeah, so always keeping them encouraged and motivating them. And then some of the education framework here, welcoming and affirming environment. So we were always promoting respectful interactions between students, allowing them to work on their own. Um, so it's just a safe environment and high expectations. So we're always keeping them moving through the book because, again, they needed the class to graduate. So we are always setting high goals for these students to show their best work. And over here, a bunch of standards. The second standard, teachers, myself and Mr. Felcher had piano knowledge to help the students with modeling if they needed more help, and also establishing goals for each individual was part of the instructional planning. Instructional practice was maintaining high standards for students and utilizing technology to engage the students. So again, with that YouTube video I used, that was an example of using technology to help out that particular student. Learning environment. This was like a calm, safe space and respectful between all the students. We always tried to keep that. And also assessment for student learning. Um, so every individual, as I said, is closely monitored as we float around the class, and we differentiate paths of instruction and goals for each student to have success for everyone. So that wraps up the pillars. So I was just going to talk a bit about how I'm going to emerge as a professional after student teaching is concluded. So I have 5 steps here. Number one is to continue developing my teaching and strategies. Number two, to pursue a master's degree. Number three is keeping a journal. Number four is maintaining professional relationships. And number five is finding a job. So I'll talk a little bit about each of these. So teaching development, this is a picture of me in my elementary school class, um, working with students. And so this teaching development part is about how I've learned a lot from education classes during my time at Crane, but student teaching was by far the most beneficial step in my teaching development. And to do this, to keep developing, I need to be in the classroom and find ways to continue to teach in a classroom setting after graduation. So I'll always be looking for that. Um, Master's degree. So I have next semester, I will be pursuing a master's in performance at the University of Akron in Ohio. Um, I chose a master's in performance to get a different perspective rather than education, to enrich my musicianship and my ability to eventually model for students when teaching in my own classroom. So, always keeping on top of my musicianship, I think, is really important for teaching. And in this degree, I was also offered the position of a studio assistant.
Hmm.
So in this assistantship, I would be teaching lessons to students in the studio, in the trumpet studio, and I would also be involved with the brass quintet, the honors brass quintet, which I was told actually tours and sometimes goes to local schools in the area. So I think um, that will be cool for me to be still involved with younger students during this time of my master's degree. Journaling. So here's a picture of, or a screenshot of one of my weekly journal reflections. This was a really helpful part of student teaching that Mr. Cerullo, my student teaching coordinator, had us do every week. We would just answer some questions about how the week was going, talk about some situations we were in, some successes we had, whatever we wanted to talk about. And this was just really helpful for me to look back and remember things from weeks because so much happens during the week. And the next week you might forget everything that happened and some of the things that worked well. So always writing it down. Um, I think I will continue. I would like to continue to do during my own teaching, even if it's just little notes to remember important moments. And also, as far as journaling, my high school cooperating teacher, Miss Stacy Stolberger, also kept a journal, which I thought was very helpful and very considerate. So she was keeping a journal on her thoughts of my teaching, um, where we should go the next day with that group of students and all that. So journaling really helpful. I want to keep doing that. And then I just wanted to talk a little bit about each teacher I had. This relates to maintaining professional relationships and how important I find this to be. So, Mr. Ryan Felcher, my elementary teacher, was an incredible mentor. He was a master of classroom management, which he taught me a ton of things about that. And I was one of his many, many student teachers over the years. So, with all that background knowledge, he was really able to help me and know how to go about having a student teacher in the classroom. I would learn lessons daily about teaching inside and outside of the classroom. So obviously, teaching inside the classroom, I was learning about, but also outside of the classroom, keeping professional relationships with your peers to promote, to benefit the students and yourself as a teacher. Just always, keeping good with the people in the building to, promote a good learning environment. And he also gave me a lot of insight, as I said, into executive roles outside of his main teaching position. So, like he had at the Center for Interim Instruction, That was a big role for him, and also other things like SAT testing. He was the coordinator for that. So he does all sorts of jobs outside of his main elementary school teaching gig to really keep on top of his game and support all parts of the school district. So maintaining a professional relationship like this with Mr. Felcher, I think, is really important to make it and work well with others. This is a little video. I'll just show a little bit of this. This was a basketball game with the Harlem Wizards, which used to be the Harlem Globetrotters. That's what I knew them as. But the Harlem Wizards came to the William Floyd High School. This was after my elementary school teaching placement, but Mr. Felcher had me come back to conduct. This is the fourth grade Tangier Smith Elementary chorus. So I worked with them on the Star Spangled Banner, and this is me conducting it with them. So I'll show a little bit of so even this just this instance of maintaining this relationship with my teacher and him willing to invite me back to conduct this was really important to me, and shows me how that is. And then here, Miss Stacy Stolberger is my high school coordinating teacher or cooperating teacher. Again, maintaining a professional relationship with him or with her is really important. Um, that I find. This was a different experience, definitely, than my relationship with my cooperating teacher at the elementary, because I was Miss Stolberger's first student teacher. So it was like a new experience for both of us. But she was incredibly helpful, incredibly collaborative, lesson planning together every day, team teaching in lessons, her keeping the journal as I stated before. So it was a really collaborative process that was really cool to work with. And I also got different insights here than I would have at the elementary school. So I got insights into concert planning, preparing for music trips and competitions. There was a point during my placement where the band went to Virginia Beach for their trip to go to a competition there. So I got to see the ins and outs of preparing for that, which is a crazy process, but something I'm looking forward to one day. And also working with an assortment of instruments. I was provided with all sorts of instruments to help out students during lessons and stuff. So that was a lot of insight I got during this placement. And then this video here, um, again, maintaining this professional relationship, maintaining trust in this teacher to teacher relationship. She allowed me to and invited me to perform my conducting at the spring concert, which was actually last night. So this is a video from last night of me conducting the Thunderer by John Philip Sousa. So I'll show a little bit of this. So these are just two of many professional relationships I hope to maintain after teaching. And going on, eventually, obviously, find a job, start teaching after my master's degree in Akron. This is a picture here of our office at the high school. This is my little desk
Mhm.
area here. This is my teachers, so we were working together here. And this is just like a picture to remind me of, where I'll be one day with my teaching. And yeah, this is what I want to do. And lastly, I just have a little quote here that relates to me. This was written on the board on my first day at my high school placement. I walked in and I saw this. It says, "Without music, life would be flat," which is, I'm sure you've heard before. It's like a little corny pun, but I really find value in this sentiment. It's not like just about a job, it's about creating meaningful musical experiences for students. I want all the students in my classroom to want to be there, to want to learn, and make lifelong connections and memories in the classroom. My fondest memories, personally, from school were mostly formed in the music classroom, and if I can do that for even just one student, then I will have found success in this profession. And I can't wait to pursue this dream for years to come. So, thank you. And any questions?
Yeah.
And here's links to my portfolio and artifacts. So, yeah,
Okay, great. This was great. Andrew, can you hear me okay?
yeah,
Okay, great. Congratulations again. And it sounds like you really had a great semester of learning and enacting practices that you've only been reading up to, reading about up to this point. And like you said, student teaching is really the semester where you can spread your wings. And it often is the most impactful semester because you're finally putting everything into practice and you have great mentors with you. So congratulations. And I'm super
absolutely.
happy.
Yeah,
And congrats on your admission into grad school. That's really
thank you.
great.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So I took a lot of notes about many of the artifacts that you showed from student teaching, evidence of your own learning and your students' learning. And I just have a few questions regarding some of them. And so these are really meant to kind of make you think in a different way, challenge you a little bit, or just get some more clarification on the thinking that you exhibited when you may have designed them, or maybe when you worked in collaboration with Mr. Felter or your other cooperating teacher. So I want to focus in on two specific areas, and one of them was your second part one artifact where you talked about the strategies for classroom management.
Yeah,
And I am going to connect those because the question I have kind of loops another artifact you showed, which was your MLK system or MLK songs for your principal practitioner
yep.
artifact in part two. And you said two things about them that kind of struck me. And the first one was the tickets, the lollipops, getting kids on task and making sure that they're singing to their best of their ability. But one of the things that you said drove that was this idea of rewards
Mm.
and this extrinsic motivation to get them going. And this tied into the MLK artifact because you said you had a ticket system to make sure they were actively listening.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
yes.
Okay,
It was part of that system just to keep encouraging them, like you said, an extrinsic thing on top of the
sure.
lesson. Yeah.
Sure. So I don't know if you did you ever read any Alfie Kohn when you were in any of your coursework with Dr. Lewis or John Schaller?
I'm not sure.
Okay, Alfie Kohn is he's an educator and he has really strong views on the idea of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. And one of the things he says is replication is not commitment, recitation is not understanding. And so I have a question for you about, and it's sort of like broad based, but you can think about it, especially since you plan on going into the field. How could we reconceptualize the idea of motivation and move away from a system of extrinsic rewards and still maintain something that you said, which was a high work ethic among the students? Because usually when kids need some kind of an extrinsic reward, they're working for that and they're not working because, and I'm not speaking about this specifically, but we have to consider, are we really giving our kids a strong need to know? And I want to do it because the task is a fun thing to do. So
Hmm.
what do you address that a little bit? In For the ticket MLK thing, the ticket system to encourage listening. Again, this is a partner question. In hindsight, do you think you could have utilized another strategy to intrinsically motivate students or strengthen their need to know as participants in either experience? What do you think about that?
Um, yeah. Um, I guess in the MLK thing, to make it more about the music,
Mhm,
I could split them into groups and make it more about performing the song.
mhm,
So groups of students they want to be with or chosen, whatever, um, to give them the opportunity to learn the song on their own and with their partners. And the point of it is to have them perform it at the end,
mhm.
um, in their groups, to see like all of their hard work to that point of where they can perform it well together. So encouraging them through music rather than a reward system, I think is important. So that would be, I guess,
Yeah.
one way to go.
Yeah, like with their in music, if it's supposed to be joyous, collaborative, and fun and residual, right? We talked about criteria, at least when you were in Crane, of generativity, vibrancy, and this idea that music should, these experiences you design should have some kind of a positive residual effect years down the line. And we also know, I'm holding up one of your favorite, I'm sure, resources from Crane, the core art standards: performing, creating, responding,
Yeah.
and connecting. And if we look at performing, which your MLK thing was, we know that performing is a process. And you just talked about the idea of putting them into the groups. What kind of questions do you think you could generate for kids to get them to analyze the music that you want them to sing, and then talk about the ways they, even as third and fifth graders, can interpret it? What do they think MLK's message should be as they sing the song? So again, this idea of high level thinking that can kind of keep these kids really engaged in the task for the task's sake,
Yeah.
right? So that's one thing I would encourage you to kind of leave this experience with, especially as you go out and seek a job on your own. But does that
Oh,
make sense?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And classroom management, as important as it is, how can that be not seen as something separate from good instruction? How can we make our good instruction be the thing that, say, manages our kids? If they're doing it because they enjoy it, guess what? There is no policing. There is no tickets because they want to do the thing. So I would encourage you, as you move on past this experience, to consider those elements. And I have another question. I think that William Floyd Academy program, the piano thing, was a really neat thing for you to show me. And my question for you is, and I got really excited when you talked about how some of the kids wanted to do their own thing, right?
Hmm.
And you referenced a Kendrick Lamar tune and the YouTube tutorial. So my question for you is, why such an emphasis on written notation in this program, instead of learning songs possibly by ear and having a more creative element to it?
Yeah, I suppose that is a good point. My teacher, was just all about the book. Um, I tried to, use the video like that, the Kanye West thing, to find different ways. Why not? Sorry. Um,
No, that's why I'm asking you too, because it's
yeah,
like, oh yeah, yeah. And was it your idea to tap into that area, that the vein of this kid's interested in it, so I'm going to show him a way that he could help him learn it? Was that your idea?
he was like, he had looked at those videos before,
Uh,
like on YouTube at home, and then I saw him have it on his phone,
mhm.
have it on his phone out that video, and I was like, yeah, this would be a cool thing for you to actually look at. So you should like learn it.
Yeah.
And then by the end of them learning songs, to get like more um, hundreds and stuff in the class, they would perform it for the class. So eventually he performed that, and he also had other teachers from the program that he had come in and listen to it. So it was cool.
Yeah, I would encourage you to keep on thinking in that vein. Again, the emphasis on written notation is not, it's not an unimportant skill, but it's not something somebody needs to be successful as a musician. And when you have kids, especially high school kids, who by that age probably have a deep connection to playlists, to musical
Yeah.
consumption at home, it's really important that as educators we bring that into the classroom. So in a class like that, or any not like that, any kind of, from elementary to high school context that you have the good fortune to be presented with teaching, that's an excellent way to dive into their interests and bridge that gap between home and school. And again, that's something I would really encourage you to do so. Yeah. And so I guess to conclude, Andrew, how are you different now than when you came into Crane? And here's a partner question for that. Is there anything in education that you still want to think about, as a 21st century educator, music educator? What new inroads do you still think you want to make as somebody who's maybe progressive thinking? Problems in the
Yeah.
profession you want to disrupt, things like that. How are you thinking as a progressive music educator, and how are you different?
Um, I'm different where I feel like I can actually do it now. I can actually teach.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of the program at Crane is about theory and learning about what to implement in the classroom, but not exactly doing it. So actually doing it was really insightful.
Mhm.
I thought, and as far as like progressing, like things I want to go into, what you were talking about, like applying their interests into the
Yeah.
classroom, their musical instruments
Mhm.
or musical interests. I actually talked about that recently with my um, high school teacher. So I think um, the transcription project was maybe a step in that direction because it was using
I
maybe
agree.
a more popular tune, newer than something like an old symphony or something that they'll probably play in bands. So using more of their interests and um, the music they want to know about in the classroom, I think would be a cool way to go and helpful for the students to keep them interested.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great aim. And again, what do we want our kids to have known and done with us 20 years down the line? How is being with Mr. Shiebler going to make them a more well-rounded appreciator, consumer, producer, joyous music maker with their people, and knowing you're not teaching yourself? And I think that's the biggest thing that I don't know if you guys talked about that in PME 1,000 years ago, but you're not going to be teaching you. And I think you just saw that, right? We know that there's a very small percentage of students who go to high school music, and there's like 10 to 15% of kids actually are enrolled in high school music, and like 1% of them are actually going into music. So
Mhm.
again, if that's something that you think, gee, that needs fixing, how do you think, and this is another kind of fun thing, I'm kind of jealous of you because you're about to take on the big world, right? What kinds of things can you do as a music educator that really open up students' purview to the possibilities? Like when I was a kid, I graduated from high school and I knew there were two things you could be: a teacher or a performer. That was it. I didn't
Mhm.
have an upbringing where, you could be a DJ, a producer, and technology wasn't the thing either. But with everything at your fingertips, how do you think you could open up the world to your future students to let them know there's a million different possibilities in music? And
Yeah.
again, if you're teaching people who aren't going to grow up to be professional musicians, how can you keep them going for the rest of their lives? So just
Yeah.
stuff to think about. But anyway, do you have any questions for me?
Um, do you want the link to my presentation? Do you need that?
I don't
Or
need it, but you are going to probably need to send that to Dr. McCoy as he is chair, and the link to your portfolio as well is going to go into some kind of departmental database, and that's going to be stored for certification purposes. So make sure, if it's not already, your portfolio link is up to date and everything
yep.
that needs to be there. Just recheck the handbook and make sure all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted.
Okay. Great.
That gets submitted. Okay. And do you think, one more question, do you remember your student teaching interview? Placement interview?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember how you had to articulate goal statements?
Yes.
Do you think you accomplished those?
I would say so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay,
I
because
think I
they
did
had
a
to do.
lot. I did a lot during student teaching. A lot of
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, it's really good to see you. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to watch, and hi to the family. And yes, and if you have any questions, either direct them to me or you can direct them to Dr. McCoy. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
And thank you, Andrew. All right. Take
Thank you.
care. Bye.
Bye.